Nice to finally be back. And talking of being back, it's nice to be back on my own 2 feet again after a minor incident, of course. Here's me leg, seems to be doing good, healing well. So just before we get to the big stuff, we have got something new, a Chinese dinner table that I decided to build for all my tools, and it also rotates, very nice. I've also moved the CNC opposite the Bridgeport, and unfortunately we have suffered a casualty, this vice. I reckon though with the right amount of elbow grease and a little bit of TLC she'll clean up just enough to chuck in the bin so the neighbours don't see.
Cross, so I'll have to jack it up and that's Saturday.
So finally, here we are. This is a 13Z minor Dean Smith & Grace made in Keighley, England, and almost everything I've learnt about this lathe has been from the Lathes UK website as well as a various few other places. The DSG company was founded in 1865, and it didn't take them long to start to earn a formidable reputation in the field of machine making, as over time they started to become known as the Rolls-Royce of lathes. What made these lathes so incredible wasn't just the fact that they had a well thought about layout, it was also the fact that everything that was made double the size, double the thickness and double the sturdiness. Almost all their tools that they used to create their lathes was made in-house and on-site. They had their own in-house foundry, they created all their own cutting tools in-house, and even their own hammers in-house. Unlike today's machines where it seems that features have just been chucked on and castings are as thin as possible, DSG only concerned themselves with very serious machinery and were aimed towards industrial use and very rugged environments. It's also said that at the time their workforce had tailored and made to measure overalls, and in the canteen the cutlery was stamped DSG. Dean Smith & Grace only really made larger lathes for industry use, but in the 40s they made a 13-inch model which had an exact centre height of 6.75 inches. This became known as the baby lathe, and it came in two sizes, the 30-inch and the 42-inch. The short bed version weighed in at 3,920 pounds and was almost 3 times that of a Colchester student in weight. This particular model of lathe that I've got here, the Z13 Minor, was kind of hard to find out any proper information on. What I can tell you though is that it was made in the 40s during World War II. It's got a rough turning length with both lathe chuck and tailstock chuck on of 70 centimetres or 28 inches. The length of the ways on the bed are 54 inches, and it's got a rough centre height of 6 inches. The width of the bed is just under 1 foot at 30 centimetres, and the entire length of the lathe bed is 73 inches. And finally the through bore, which works out to about 36.5mm. So this is what I got with the lathe. This is a 4-jaw independent chuck. It's a little bit smaller than the self-centering 3-jaw that came on the lathe. I also got this facing plate, but the best thing yet is I got this change gear rack. Now this is literally the cherry on top of the cake for me. This has got to be rare. I wasn't expecting one of these. Unfortunately though, some of the gears do have teeth missing or even chipped teeth, so we'll have to have a go at recutting some of those. These are a few of the other bits that I got as well, including this pretty cool old school style chuck key. I also got this Lathe centre that says British Archer on it. One last thing that came with this lathe was this Jacobs chuck. Now, this one came with the Boxford, and what's cool about these is the one that came with the Boxford was made in the USA, but the one that I got with the DSG was made in Britain, in Sheffield, so now I've got a set, one made in Britain, one made in America. This is the current condition of the lathe. These are the ways on the cross slide, and oh boy, this is going to take some cleaning. Hopefully under all that crust we are looking at something that is still half usable. I've cleaned a little bit of a patch on the main bed and it's not looking all that bad. There are a few streaks, however it does look like some of the rust has just started to cause a little bit of pitting, which isn't the best. We'll have to inspect that and see how far it goes. Most of the damage however does seem to be on the back of the lathe, so I can only assume that it's probably been used mostly for larger work. So the first thing that I'm going to do is remove the chuck. I want to have a look underneath, I want to see what the backing plate looks like, I want to see if the condition of the nose is any good as well. And this is the first time that I'm taking this chuck off, and I'm quite surprised on how loose those bolts were. So for anyone that was wondering, this chuck weighs a hair over 30 kilos and it's 10 inches in diameter. bit of a comparison here between the size of the chuck and the headstock on the Boxford. Well, this is a little bit of a surprise. It's got a threaded spindle nose. So, from what I've read, DSG have a patented fast lock nose, and I'm assuming that's what this is. I just kind of wasn't expecting to see it. And the threads on that nose are greater than a 7mm pitch, so they are quite big. Using a dial indicator to check the spindle nose shows that there's about 10 microns of run out. I think that's not too bad to say how old it is. The back plate shows the same story, though a bit rougher. There also seems to be a very well defined 10 microns of play when I'm rocking it forwards and backwards. Behind this cover is where the change gears go, and there is something definitely missing. I did get a handful of nuts and bolts, only about 1 or 2. I didn't get any collars or sleeves though, which definitely looks like this thing's missing, as there's no sleeves, collars or spacers for any of this. This box you can see on the side of the lathe here is actually a gearbox, and this works in conjunction with the change gears on the back of the lathe to produce a wide variety of screw cutting pitches, as well as feed rates. And I can tell you another thing as well, Dean Smith and Grace were not messing around when they made this. This cover weighs almost 8 kilos alone, and it's almost 15mm thick on the bottom, just for a cover. Whenever the oil gets topped up, it runs into this little tray, and you can see that there's bits of rope that have been packed into these pipes, and that wicks up the oil and slowly distributes it and drips it onto where it needs to go over a period of time. The gears, however, look quite nice. It doesn't look like they've been changed too much whilst the lathe's been running, which is good. And this is the forward and reverse, so this is reverse, and then we've got neutral, and then forward. Since I brought this lathe and managed to drag it back into the garage, I've been wanting to do only one thing, and that's take this top off and have a look inside. And I can tell you one thing, I was not disappointed. This is an absolute work of art. The first thing that instantly struck me was this pipe work. Brass pipes with soldered ends. There's literally a little bit of pipe that goes onto every gear, every bearing, everywhere. Absolutely brilliant. The second thing was just the pure size of these gears. It's got 2 midpoint bearings, which I wasn't expecting, so there must be at least 4 bearings in this headstock. 1 at each end and then 2 in the centre. Never really seen that before. Then again, I've never really had a lathe this big before. These are the teeth on the larger gear, and you can see that someone's definitely tried to change speeds whilst the lathe's in motion, because you can see that the edges of the teeth have been sort of chewed away. On the smaller gear it's even worse, but the most important thing is that there is no missing teeth. They are a bit chewed up, but they're not missing. Down on the left side here you can see a little bit of a shiny wear mark, and I was kind of wondering what that was until I started to turn it around, and I realised it was an offset cam. I can only assume that this pushes onto some sort of little piston or a pump that pumps oil around this pipework system. Well, I think that's about that, to be honest with you. This is the bed number, in case anyone was interested, 20486. And this was the motor that I got with it. This is a 3 horsepower single phase motor. I would like a 3-phase motor, as they sort of don't run as hot and they've got a little bit more power at the slower speeds. This one does seem to have a bit of zazz about it though. It does seem to go quite quick and it makes the lights dim when I turn it on. Okay then, so what's the plan now? Where are we going with this? Why am I showing you this? Well, as you've probably guessed, I want to restore this lathe. You know, it's clearly not in usable condition, not with the way the ways are, and the fact there's no motor attached to the lathe. So I do want to restore it. I want to restore it back to that original factory look. And I've had a little bit of a think about this, and I'm going to split it up into 3 parts. I don't want to make 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts for no reason. I just want to break it down into 3 parts. The first part is going to be the strip down, where we strip down every single nut, bolt, washer, every single gear comes out, everything gets stripped down. The second part will consist of cleaning the parts up, inspecting them, make sure everything's alright, and trying to restore the parts back to originality without having to make new ones. In the third part and the final one, I want to just put everything back together. Put everything back together and try and get this back to how it would be when you first brought it from Dean Smith and Grace in the 40s. That's going to be a challenge, and a challenge I'm more than happy to take on. Hopefully we can breathe a little bit of life into this old machine. So yeah, that's the plan really. And for those of you that are stuck around to the end of the video, I do want to say thank you for watching, and I also want to showcase a few tools that I got for Christmas. So this first piece is a plunger style dial indicator, which basically means you use it vertically or 90 degrees to your workpiece. It's got a lug back, and this is the kind of dial indicator that you'd use for lining up your parts in your lathe chuck. This next piece is a horizontal type test dial indicator. It reads down to 1/1000th of a millimetre, or 1 micron, plus or minus 1 micron. It's got a stem length of 11.2 millimetres, and this is the kind of dial indicator that you would use for testing your mill's spindle run out. Its part number is 513-401-10E. So by now, of course, it'd be rude not to have a full set. So these are some Mitutoyo calipers. They read down to 100th of a millimetre and they go up to 150 millimetres. I didn't get the fancy carbide tipped jaw ones, but I can connect them to the computer, although I'll probably never will. It's nice to know that I can though. The part number is 500-171-30, and it's these tools I'll be using to make sure that when I restore the DSG lathe, that we restore it properly. So I think that does actually finally wrap up this video. Thank you for watching, sincerely, and I'll see you in the next one, which hopefully will be the teardown of the lathe.